Hello there. Okay, so I'm here again to respond to your feedback for Module 2.A, specifically on gender issues, and highlight of that is gender-based violence. Thank you for all your feedback, even from the previous module, and for our Module 2 for our week 2. So let me share my screen. So I have I saw that there are questions, more the top 3 questions or feedback that were raised are on this ones, no? Gender-based violence, and then consequently vow, and then also there are concerns, how about men being abused? So I will also tackle on that, and more discussions on the nature of gender-based violence, statistics, even on violence against men, and also questions on intersectionality as a concept has also been raised, so I will also discuss that. Okay, so let's continue. Okay. Also shared in the module, no, in our module for this week is on the definition of gender-based violence. But to further discuss that, so ano ibig sabihin no, ng gender-based violence? It involves the abuse of power, because when we talk about violence in any form, it uses power, no? Kaya nga binabanggit ko, usually violence happens by another person or an organization even, or society, uh, that thinks they are more powerful, or they are more in control of the situation and over the other, no, over the other party. So for our purpose here, gender-based violence, we are discussing it on the basis of gender, meaning acts of gender-based violence are based on gender, meaning you are being violated, or you are being abused, you are being physically or sexually or psychologically, economically violated because of your gender or your gender identity, no? And since we discussed previously that gender has a lot to do with power struggle between and among genders and gender identities. So, doon natin hinuhugot lagi yon, yung unequal power relationship and the exploitative relationships, no? Between the abused and the abuser, or the exploited and the exploiter, if we will say that, no? However, it says here, no, it is important to take note that not all people with power abuse their power. So hindi naman porket you are the authority, it automatically means that you are already an abuser. Kaya nga meron tayong gustong pag-usapan a little later about patriarchy, about lack of human rights as actually the root causes of gender-based violence. We will go into that a little later. So, gaya ng binanggit din natin as in the module, no, it's more of an umbrella term, no, yung GBV or gender-based violence. They are harmful act that is perpetrated against a person's will and that is based on socially ascribed, yun nga, you know, that's the definition of gender, differences between males and females, and even to include LGBTQIA+. This is according to the guidelines by the agency, no, on gender-based violence at the UN level. And then, may pagtatanong, no, well, men and boys, how about the men and boys? No, they can actually be, and they are, no. I will discuss further later kung ano yung meron tayong data about this, both in the Philippines and even in other countries like the US. Can be victim survivors of some types of gender-based violence, particularly sexual violence. Yung tong interagency on GBV guidelines further explain that around the world, gender-based violence really has a greater impact on women and girls, for the main reason that it is more rampant. Patriarchy is really more rampant and really negatively impact against women more, no? Although, gaya na binanggit natin in Module 1, gender stereotypes are affect everyone, no? Kaya nga lahat tayo may stake, supposed to be. But yun nga, you know, in terms of statistics data that we have, and in terms of even on observations, no, personal accounts also, my personal experiences also, talagang mas ano pa rin, no, sa society natin na yung sitwasyon ay mas higit na problematic against women and men, against women and girls when we talk about gender-based violence. Thus, the use usually the term interchangeably, no, yung gender-based violence to also mean violence against women. But we could technically differentiate them naman talaga, no, kasi mas encompassing nga ang gender-based violence, no. Yan. So like this one, yan. Gender-based violence is the umbrella term, and then one aspect of it is violence against women and even girls. I would like to highlight this as well because kumbaga double ano to yung violence against girls because they are children and they are women, no. So doble yung kumbaga yung factor na kailangan nating i-ano dito, lagyan ng pansin. And then an example of VOWG or vow, for example, in our Philippine setting, based on our existing legal instruments or laws, is this, no, yung intimate partner violence o yung anti-VOWC law, which I think you know very well, yung sa term, no, sikat siya, Anti-Violence Against Women and Their Children Act or RA 9262. Marami rin nagtanong nito, so briefly I will explain it. It's one of the examples of a law, no, that addresses violence against women, but it is not the only law because ganang binanggit ko dun sa isang description, dun sa isang resource natin when I link to the Philippine Commission on Women or PCW website, no, may limitation, may scope lamang ang anti-VOWC law. It just covers intimate partner violence, no, between husband and wife, between dating or anyone who have sexual or intimate relationship or dating romantic relationship, even past or present, no. So it does not cover other forms of violence na kunyari yung wala naman kayong relasyon o kaya hindi naman kayo nag-date, hindi ka naligawan, etc. For example, yung mga nangyayari sa public transportation, sa jeepneys, yung mga panghihipo na hindi naman kayo wala kayong intimate relationship, hindi siya mako-cover ng anti-VOWC law. Other laws will cover for that, like Safe Spaces Act. That's why I said then, no, na it's actually it's a good law, yung Safe Spaces Act, which we will have a separate discussion sa next week. Kasi nakalagay siya na hindi lang siya pang women, hindi lang women ang pwedeng mag-complain about it, anyone, because yung nakalagay doon ay on the basis of your SOGI, and our discussion of SOGI is really, no, SOGI is for everyone because everyone has SOGI. Hindi lang siya pang LGBTQIA, no? So yun lang yung differentiation dito. Gender-based violence is the more encompassing term. It could also mean violence against men. It could also mean violence against LGBTQIA. Yun nga lang sa maraming literatures, VOW, violence against women and gender-based violence are used interchangeably because based on the statistics, violence against women is really more rampant and impact women and girls more, no? Although, yeah, we would like to be more inclusive. So, yun. Kung gusto natin na mas technically correct yung gamitin nating term. Okay din yun. And again, ang domestic violence, intimate partner violence, like RA 9262 will just cover for a certain type of violence but cannot cover the other types of VOW or gender-based violence, which other laws can actually cover. So, importante lang yung part na yun because when we file complaints or reports, importanteng tama yung nadodraw o na nire-refer nating batas, no? Kasi if hindi, hindi magpa-prosper, madedelay yung process kasi mali yung nare-refer natin batas. And I've seen a lot of reports na nasa pag in-interview yung mga local authorities, they refer to the wrong law, no? Naakala kapag any form of violence against women ay RA 9262 or yun nga, anti-VOWC law. So, importante lang na correct yung i-refer nating batas. Okay, moving forward. Again, based on the anti-VOWC law yun, no? Inanahan ko yung PowerPoint. So, ito yung for intimate partners only, okay? And then, in general, gender-based violence and particularly violence against women and girls is a public health issue. Later on, we will discuss that it has a health implication kasi. Both dun sa individual who was victimized or who was violated at pati dun sa kabuuan. The PCW link that I provided, the resource that I provided in our module actually provides for that explanation as well na malaki din yung impact nito sa health, pati dun sa health budget because they, of course, victim survivors have to be provided protection, assistance, and other forms of services. No? Kaya nakakapaglaan din tayo ng portion of resources. And para talaga makapag-address properly ng concern. No? Tapos syempre kung titingnan siya from a point of view na it's a public health issue, so ibig sabihin all other systems in place at the community level, at the national level, tas may governance aspect din yan, should be considered as well. So hindi lang siya problema nung may mag-asawa, problema nung babae, but it's a societal problem. No? And hindi lang siya localized problem. As mentioned here, it's a global issue. It's happening all over the world. No? Kahit sabihin pa nating advanced countries, first world countries, this also happens. No? Gender-based violence, also happens. At dahil dyan, nailagay din siya talaga dun sa Sustainable Development Goals number 5, no, achieve gender equality, empower all women and girls. Nakalagay yan sa number 5 dun sa patungkol sa yun nga, gender-based violence. Kahit nung previous na Millennium Development Goal pa, yung ating MDG, no, SDG, kasi nagtapos yan ng 2015. So we have a newer version of that, which is the SDG, no, yung Sustainable Development Goal. So similar din. Marami na yung nagtanong bakit women empowerment, no? Kasi yun, similar doon sa diniscuss ko ngayon. Kasi mas babae pa rin talaga, no? Yung victimized. And even among women, actually same din naman kahit among men or kahit among gender identity people also within the same sector. Also, meron din tayong mga datos na they also victimize others, no? Kasi yun yung intersectionality yung binabanggit natin, no? Hindi lang gender yung factor for abuse, no? Kunyari yung social class, mas mayaman ka kahit babae ka. So, nandun yung power dynamics, nandun yung source of power and control mo because in terms of social class and income, you are better, quote unquote, you are in a higher position. So kahit pareho kayong babae, hindi ibig sabihin nakakampi ka or magiging gender advocate ka din ng kapwa mo babae. Kasi may pagkakataon hindi mo siguro nararanasan, you don't feel the same empathy and compassion. No. At in the same manner, ganun din, hindi porket lalaki ka, you are against gender advocacy, gender equality. I know a lot of men who are actually for gender equality, even for the kunyari, passage of SOGI Equality Bill. Thank you. Diba? Kasi, yeah, no, yun yung ano natin. At hindi naman porket hindi mo nararanasan yung isang issue, hindi ka na dapat if you're not in the same shoes, no? Hindi naman ibig sabihin na kailangan mo maranasan yung mga bagay-bagay to believe that such is happening and to empathize and to have a compassion to those who have and are experiencing the concerns, no? Ang kailangan lang natin is sense of humanity, datos na ay shucks nangyayari to. And that's the reason why we are having like these discussions, no? And discourse. Okay. Also, it is considered as a major threat to social and economic development kasi gaya na binanggit natin previously, if for example, women and even men are limited to a certain type of gender role or a profession or an activity na kanyari ang babae pang ganito lang o dito lang sa bahay o kaya dito lang sa profession na to, in the same manner men din ganito, pag LGBT dito rin lang sila, no? So nalilimitahan yung mga pwedeng potentials na mai-contribute nila, hindi lamang sa sarili nila, sa kanilang family, kundi sa society at large, kasama na dito yung economics natin, no? So mas marami pa sana ang magiging engineers, for example, magiging abogado, magiging nurses, teachers, at iba pang mga professions. If we just open much opportunities and we open, nagsisimula yan sa pag-open ng mind and heart and eyes, that yun nga, wala sa kasarian ang kakayahan, no? Hindi siya nasusukat sa kasarian mo o sa gender identity mo kung ano yung kaya mo ma-contribute. Yeah. And then even the International Monetary Fund provided this one, no? Higher levels of violence against women and girls are associated with lower economic activity. No? Yeah, because yun nga, suppress yung possibilities, yung mga opportunities, they are not provided with the same level of opportunities and spaces for their own development, and which actually can translate to the societal, national economic development of that certain society kapag mataas yung risk and yung actual incidence of gender-based violence, particularly violence against women and girls. No? Ibig sabihin, hostile yung environment. Ibig sabihin, people are not free to capacitate themselves and to participate in national and even local economic and social development. So yeah. So may kinalaman din ang VAUG and GBV sa economics, no? Kaya dapat talaga kasangkot tayong lahat, no? Kasi ano 'yun magkakadugsong. Again, intersectionality, 'di ba? Yung sinasabi natin. Mamaya mas didiinan pa natin 'yan. And then I'm showing this to you just to say and show kung ano yung problem 3, no? Yung cause and effect ng violence against women or gender-based violence in general. May mga nagtatanong, bakit rampant pa din? Bakit ano yung pwedeng mga magawa, no? Kung naalala natin yung discussion natin about the agents of socialization, gender socialization, di ba? From home, school, religion, society, in general. Nandyan lahat yung kung paano tayo natututo, ano yung mga tinuturo sa atin, kung paano dapat ang treatment, ano dapat yung pangunawa. From a small and simple pink, blue, ito dapat yung laruan ng babae at lalaki hanggang mag-escalate yan to gender roles already, hanggang maisip na hindi pwedeng, boys don't cry, marami nag-react doon, yeah, boys don't cry. Kasi that's a stereotype for boys that they cannot, they should not show emotions. That's actually a gender stereotype which can actually link to link can be lang, no? Hindi naman sinasabi na agad-agad. In the same manner that not all men are abusive. They are not, hindi siya not natural. They are not innate. It's learned. At saan natin natutunan yan? Sa agents of gender socialization na nabanggit natin previously in Module 1. That's why ganun yung pagkakaayos ng ating modules, no? At yun, kung makikita natin dito sa problem 3, yan, yung root cause of the problem, patriarchy yung nasa gitna. Kasi siya yung system of beliefs, of traditions, of values, which says that a certain sector, a certain gender, is being provided with yung privilege, no? Privilege status, na siya yung mas powerful, siya yung dapat mas nagko-control. Yan, at pwede niyang gawin whatever that person, what that gender identity, or that gender wants to the other sectors, no? Na ilalagay siya sa privileged situation. And then, of course, lack of respect for human rights. Magkakadugtong yan. If you weren't taught about the importance of human rights, na feeling natin human rights is just hindi siya mahalaga. Well, in fact, like SOGSC, all of us have human rights, no? Kasi yun yung nagiging basihan kung paano dapat tayo tinatrato bilang tao, kaya siya karapatang pantao. These are the basis of our pagiging tao, how we should be treated as human beings, no? Our sense of humanity usually is drawn from this, no? Kaya importante 'yon, no? At if kung wala ito sa mga tao, they are actually more likely to be abusive, to be violating other people, no? To be offending them, to be abusing their power, no? Kasi kahit yun nga, 'Di ba sabi doon, hindi naman lahat ng people in power are abusive. Pero kung pinagsama-sama mo yan, may patriarchal mind ka, that wala kang konsepto ng human rights, wala kang respeto sa kapwa mo of their rights. Ayun, so you would become abusive. So that's from the social point of view, no, sociological point of view. Yun naman sa psychological point of view, kaya pinalabas ko yung Start with the Boys kasi uh, based on studies, based on observations, on case studies that we have read and we develop as well, we write. No, marami sa mga offender also came from abusive environment as well, o kaya yun, suppressed yung feelings nila, repressed because they are told not to express their emotions. And when people are not able to express their emotions, they do not learn how to express them in a positive manner, no? Hindi sila nagkaroon ng pagkakataon to productively use their emotions to actually bring about positive things, no, about themselves towards other people. So ang lagi kong example diyan ay yung pagputok ng bulkan, no? Dahil suppress, 'di ba? May crater, may takip usually ang mga bulkan, no? Sabihin mainit sa loob, bulkan sila, no? Mainit sa loob. Of course, I'm not a volcanologist, pero based sa pagbababasa na din natin at sa personal din natin karanasan because I live near the Taal volcano, no? Mas nakapag-research tayo, nakapagbasa-basa ng mga nature. Syempre nag-aral tayo ng natural sciences, yeah. No, parang gano'n, no? Because the emotions are suppressed, no? So lalabas at lalabas yan, but in a very violent way. Mas maraming maapektuhan, no? Kasi so kailangan niyang pasabugin yung sarili niya para makawala siya. In the same manner, pag nagsasaing tayo ng kanin, kahit rice cooker pa yun o kahit yung usual na kaldero, 'di ba? Ganun din, may cover yung kaldero, pero kumukulo na siya. So parang yun yung emotions, yun yung init, no, yung emotions. So minsan dadating siya sa point, no, kailangan niya ilabas yung emotions niya para kasi pag di niya ilabas, sasabog talaga siya ng mas matindi, masisira yung kabuuan ng pagkatao niya. So usually, ayan, pinapalabas niya yung takip ng kaldero, inaangat-angat niyang ganon. At may lumalabas na mga yung excess na mga steam, na heat, yung tulo ng kumukulong tubig dun sa malapit ng malutong kanin, no? Kaya madumi yung kaldero kahit rice cooker, ganun. So ganun similarly, from a psychological point of view, ganun yung pagtingin doon sa pinalabas natin, shinare nating Start with the Boys, no? Ibig sabihin, Start with the Boys, kahit mga bata pa, tuturuan natin sila kasi part ng gender socialization, gaya na nabanggit natin. Tuturuan natin sila ng yan. Hindi maganda ang mag-abuse ng power, hindi maganda ang patriarchy in general. We have to respect human rights of all, no? At hindi lang of a particular sector that you think are respeto dahil pareho kayo ng belief, etc. Wala, kasi dapat mas pataas at mas mababa, no? Okay. Tapos itong mga nandito sa gilid, these are just contributory factors. They are not the root causes. Ibig sabihin, they're not directly affect, no? They do not directly push people to become abusers in relation to gender-based violence. Like for example, poverty, conflict, hindi porket mahirap ka, abuser ka, no? Pero ako naniniwala na basta wala kang respeto sa human rights at ang pag-iisip mo ay patriarchal, talagang may direct effect yun at may direct siyang link sa pagiging abuser mo. But yung poverty, kung mahirap ka, hindi, no? Hindi siya directly affecting or pushing for it, but it can exacerbate, no? It can add to the factor, no? Kasi mainit ang ulo, walang makain, yung mga ganyan. Tapos siguro hindi nakapag-aral, hindi masyadong napag-aralan kung ano at nakita, nabuksan yung mata tungkol sa mga possible na human rights violations, yung pinag-usapan na yung bawal to sa batas, ganyan. Tapos yung conflict yan, kapag may nag-aaway, kanyari sa war, isa yan sa mga laging ginagawang para manifestations ng pag-conquer ng isang lugar kapag mayroong isa sa mga una nilang kinukuha yung mga babae at mga bata tas inaabuso. Yan. Pero hindi lagi din kasi kung walang respeto sa human rights, kung may respeto sa human rights, kahit sabi mong colonizers, they won't do that, di ba? Tas kung hindi naman sila naniniwala sa patriarchy. Yan. Tas yung drug abuse din, alcohol, hindi lahat ng mga may concerns about alcoholism and drug abuse. Also violate and are abusers, no? So again, they just exacerbate or they contribute, but they do not directly lead to people becoming abusers. Itong nasa baba ang talagang may direct effect. Nakakapagpadagdag lang sila. Tapos meron akong dinagdag dito, meron din dito nakalagay na disasters, no? Kasi napapansin din natin na kapag may disasters, like any form of parehong human-made or natural disasters, they exacerbate the occurrence, no? Mamaya pag-usapan natin, I will share a data about it. Tapos, ito yung mga iba't ibang forms of violence. Yan, I think I discussed this previously. And then the effects, no? May mental health dito, reproductive, physical health, stigma, rejection, isolation, pwedeng death, no? Discuss natin yan in the next few slides. Yan. So, gaya na banggit ko, may epekto sa health, may epekto sa economics, may epekto sa emotional, psychological ng victim survivor, at syempre yung sexual and kabuang well-being and functioning ng isang tao. And they also damage not just the body but the mind and the spirit, the dignity of the person. Syempre kapag patuloy kang inaabuso, di ba, maliban sa it's traumatizing, it trips you off yung lahat ng pagkatao mo parang natatanggal. Ganun kapag naaabuso, pag na-violate ka, no? Lalo yung kung all forms of violence ay nagawa sa iyo. Kahit nga isa lang doon, psychological abuse, no? Psychological violence, napahiya ka, lagi ka sinasabihan ng mga kung ano-ano, which actually demeans your self-image, your self-respect, yung dignidad mo bilang tao. Diba? Yung mga ganong klase. That's why part siya dun sa form of violence, even na nandun sa anti-Bausi law. Yeah. And then, pati yung sa mga bata, no, na nakaka-witness ng, for example, domestic violence ng magulang nila. Yeah. They actually are negatively affected by it. Kaya may tinatawag rin tayong intergenerational cycle of violence. When you witness it, syempre lagi namang may 2 o 3 pathways yon. Either depende sa iyong psychological yung psychological impact sa iyo at decision mo. You could actually say na tama pala, okay lang palang manakit ng tao, ng kapwa, ng babae for that matter, ng partner. Kasi nakikita kong ginagawa siya ng ng magulang ko. In the same manner, pwede rin naman na hindi pala yun maganda kasi nakita ko yung effect nito. Naging pangit ang impact nito sa akin, kaya ayoko ring maranasan to ng mga anak ko ng susunod, no? Yung mga ganong klase. So, depende. Pero malaki yung impact nito syempre sa isang bata, traumatizing siya. Because nakikita niya na people they love ay hindi maganda at hindi productive, hindi peaceful, hindi harmonious yung learning environment, no? Kaya malaki yung epekto nito sa magiging future nga din nga, gaya na nabanggit ko, no? May mga ilang tendencies na they would also create the same mistake, no? Kaya binanggit ko, intergenerational cycle of violence. That's why we also need to intervene to those who are negatively affected ng mga bata. Yan. Kaya yan yung isang dahilan din kung bakit hindi healthy na dahilan talaga. Never naging healthy na dahilan to stay in an abusive relationship for the sake of the children. Kasi if there's an abusive relationship within the family, hindi siya healthy tirahan ng mga bata. Okay? Hindi siya healthy at hindi siya conducive para tirahan at kalakihan ng mga kabataan. Lagi kong binabanggit sa mga trainings na hindi nabubuo ang isang pamilya, kung yun yung laging binabanggit, by virtue of the number of family members. Buo ang pamilya kapag nandun yung mga elements ng love, respect, harmonious relationship. Hindi yan sa bilang ng members of the family. Tapos yan, Meron din pagkakataon na pag nano-normalize yung violence within the home and even in the community, it becomes parang norm na okay lang, tanggap siya. And nakakatakot yun, no, na kapag naging rampant yung occurrence ng violence at tinatanggap na lang siya as is na parang it's normal, wala na tayong magagawa. At hindi pwede siyang mabago. And it's a good thing the Philippines, meron tayong mga batas na pwedeng i-draw from at kailangan i-implement. Even at the United Nations naman, even in the whole, naman. So may mga declarations, may mga legal instruments tayo. No? So yun, sa Philippines nga lang, ang ganda ng ating mga ginagalawan dito. Kasi dun sa mga batas at sa mga existing structures, yun nga lang, importante lang na kailangan ay nauunawaan din ng mga implementors na functioning dapat ang structures and mechanisms, no? At yun yung malaki yung problema natin sa iba't ibang aspeto at iba't ibang level, which we can further discuss that sa next module, no? Kasi doon tayo sa patungkol sa mga legal instruments, sa mga policies. And sa fourth, sa last week naman natin, yung mga mechanisms pang iba for gender mainstreaming. Okay. In terms of statistics, this will be the end of my slide siguro in the next, no, bago tayo tapusin for this part 1, no. Hatiin ko lang para lang hindi masyadong mahaba. So this came from PSA, Philippine Statistics Authority, dun sa National Demographic Health Survey nila in 2017. This is the latest that we have, no. Kung ano yung meron tayong datos ng violence against women, actually tumaas to kaysa sa 2013, no? Dati kasi 1 out of 5 ang nabibictimize ng VAW. Ngayon ay 1 out of 4, no? So tumaas siya. Well, syempre yung reporting and yung awareness ng tao nakaapekto doon. Ibig sabihin, people are more open to reporting incidents, no? So it's a good thing, pero yung actual occurrence kasi syempre hindi mo rin naman masasabi based on reports, but these are the actual reports that we have, no? So ialo lang natin ng mabilis yung iba't ibang aspeto, but I'm inviting you to go to the PSA website on the NDHS. Pwede nilang i-search yan using those keywords, no? NDHS, VAW, yan, by PSA 2017. Yan. So, pansinin natin, even as early as 15 to 19, yan, meron tayong nararanasan na mga kababaihan na physical violence. And then, yan, meron nagkakaroon na 17.8, yan. From since age 15, no? Mga bata pa to, lalo na sa, kasi tumataas din yung percentage natin patungkol sa teenage pregnancy at sa maagang pag-aasawa. So, yun. Nagkakaroon ng mas madaming possibilities for exposure. Yan. Tapos ito, meron ding by virtue of marital status, yung pinakamataas na percentage ang nangyayari ang violence among divorced, separated, or widowed. Yan. Tapos yun, marami pang iba dito in terms of area. So, ang pinakamataas ay yung darkest, no? So, nandito, makikita tayo mga darkest. So, meron dito sa Caraga, Eastern Visayas, and Bicol region, yung mga nakikita nating pinakamatataas ang reports. So, reports to, not the actual occurrence. Pwede nating masabi na mataas sila because maayos ang reporting system, mataas ang level of awareness ng mga tao na ang nangyayari ay bawal at dapat i-report. No, maaari rin namang talagang in actuality matataas yung occurrence, yung actual incidents. No? Kaya lang di natin masabi na dun sa mga hindi masyadong matataas, mabababa yung actual occurrence. Maaaring hindi pa masyadong open yung lugar na yon for reporting, merong stigma pa, o kaya hindi accessible ang reporting system. So we could look at that in two forms. No? So sa sexual violence naman, ayan, meron din. Merong at age 18, yan, mga maaga. Tapos pinakamataas pa rin among divorced, separated, or widowed yung sexual violence. Yan. And then, similar, no, Caraga, yung pinaka, dito, yung darkest na nandito. So sila yung pinaka mataas ang sexual violence in terms of percentage distribution by region. Ayun. So, hopefully, no, magkaroon ng mga changes to on a positive note. Ayan. So, mag-stop muna ako and then let's go back a little later sa ating next video.